Since this has happened, the beast has stuck its head in our noose. I believe we will cut off its head. Naturally, with such an intense enemy offensive, there's no need for us to counterattack. Why? Because it's more advantageous for us to let them come in as deep as possible, destroy them completely, and then do our work, advance. NATO had essentially been preparing for this offensive. They gathered everything they had and threw it in. The NATO Joint Chiefs of Staff fully planned this operation, and it's clear that the main initiators of this are the Americans and the British. There's no doubt about that. Naturally, all NATO headquarters are involved, and all the equipment from these countries is being used. It's not just equipment, but also technical support and weapons. All of it has been mobilized because the enemy is so eager for us to lose. What's interesting is that the enemy probably used every type of NATO equipment they have for this offensive.
What do they have? Can you list it?
Well, there's the M113 MRAV, different names for this equipment, French vehicles and others. There's really everything here.
It's not just the Cossack armored vehicles, right?
No, there are Cossacks, Humvees, and I'm telling you, the Max Pro. Those Swedish APCs, what are they called? There's so much that you can't even remember all the names. I'd say I'd be glad if they threw all their reserves into the area where my unit is. Go ahead, because no matter what, I will deal them such a blow that I'm confident in my guys. I know they won't back down, and they won't let the enemy through. As long as my soldiers are alive, they won't let the enemy pass. In fact, as long as my fighters are alive, the enemy won't be able to pass. They are highly motivated and capable. These are not just empty words. This isn't just a local conflict. It's clear that NATO sees this as a broader opportunity to weaken us. But they're wrong. The resilience and skill of our troops, especially those like mine, will ensure their defeat. At this moment, I'll tell you this. There is a shield in front of you, as you can see. It's just 57 kilometers away. I'm not planning to bring it too close to the line of combat contact. It's just a forest and a river, probably. It's the kind of forest that is not simple at all. Or maybe the opposite. Well, of course, when the forests are large and extensive, you need significant resources to carry out any activities there. But at the same time, if you need to disappear, it's a very advantageous option. It's clear to me that NATO has invested a lot of effort and resources into this operation. They've brought in their best equipment, their latest technology, and even their most well-trained soldiers. Yet despite all of this, my unit remains confident. We've faced similar challenges before, whether it was in Kreminna, Bakhmut, or Chasiv Yar. My special forces, the Akhmat unit, have always held the line. We know how to counter their tactics and use their overconfidence against them.
The forests are different. Yes, in Donetsk it's steppe, but the combat experience is such that even now it is clear that the enemy's advance has been stopped by these guys who are heroically doing their job today. It is much more difficult to pass through such dense thickets, so of course the war is taking on other forms. The only element that remains classic in any war, in any combat, is undoubtedly the factor of unpredictability. But throughout our millennia-long history, we see that this factor always persists in any military actions. Now, this element of surprise has been overcome, and a planned military operation is being organized. The guys will just be clearing village by village, block by block.
In Martinovka, I'll say, in the area where our guys are located, we currently do not record any local residents. However, I can say that today's prisoners, whom the guys extracted, had footage on their GoPro cameras showing that they were loading civilian population onto vehicles. This was done to either remove them from the area so they wouldn't be a hindrance or to have a large exchange fund. They even take civilians into captivity. And why civilians? Well, there are several reasons or PR tactics to prepare them to say how poorly things are in Russia, how difficult it is here. This is part of a campaign to provide the West with material portraying us as bad and our government as terrible. Secondly, where needed, they can be used as a human shield. Thirdly, they can be used as an exchange fund. The Ukrainian side does not have as many prisoners as we do. For instance, as far as I remember, there are about 6,000 prisoners on the Russian side, while the Ukrainian side has about 600, 700 of our prisoners. These figures were reported recently. We have approximately 10 times more prisoners. You know, the previous prisoners cried the same way, and these ones cry the same way. Absolutely. I'll give you the chance to talk to them yourself when we get there. You can ask them all your questions.
И те плакали также, и эти плачут также, абсолютно. Вот я вам сейчас доедем, дам возможность с ними пообщаться, вот сами как раз и позадаете все вопросы.
These are precisely the fighters who were almost trying to capture Moscow, it turns out. How long have you been on the front with us?
It turns out I was in training for 35 days.
No, you were conscripted this year?
Yes.
You were mobilized, right?
In early summer, it was the guys from the draft office who took us.
What month?
The first month of summer. Initially, I did not shoot. If they got further from me, I dug a trench, folded my hands, and did not shoot when your people came.
They have no other option because even if they try to retreat, there are blocking squads behind them that will shoot them. I know that. So those who did not make the decision to surrender are already dead. Those who eventually decided not to resist laid down their weapons. Here they are, as you see before us.
При любом раскладе то, что Украина не может воевать против России и что ее силы на исходе, об этом.
In any case, everyone knows that Ukraine cannot fight against Russia and that its forces are running out. But what is the essence of the situation? The enemy isn't Zelensky. Zelensky is just a pawn. The real decision makers, the owners of Ukraine, have made up their minds. If they had managed to take the Kurchatov nuclear power plant, if they had managed to take Kursk or Belgorod, they would have used that to bargain and say, all right, you leave, and we'll give your land back. We'll give your plant back. In this way, we would have been put in the position of the losing side, which would also have had to pay some kind of reparations. Understand?
Will they keep trying to advance on Kursk, the nuclear power plant, and Belgorod?
Marina, they try to break through there every day. Every day they try to push forward. But the fact is, we have already stopped them, blocked them, and we are destroying them in Suja and all of our territories. And not only these territories, historically Russian territories will return home, everything will come back. I think people still need to be patient. I've said this several times already, and I'll say it again. If someone is wondering why we aren't doing something quickly, they need to understand that if you want to achieve quick victories, you have to sacrifice a lot of people, a lot of guys. That is unacceptable for us. We don't need a victory today if it means losing tomorrow. I believe that the tactic of careful, slow advancement, destroying the enemy's resources, is much more justified than anything else.
То есть победа сегодня для того, чтобы завтра проиграть, она нам не нужна. И я считаю, что тактика, аккуратного, медленного продвижения, уничтожая ресурсы противника, эта тактика, она намного оправданнее, чем что бы то ни было. Безвыходных ситуаций вообще нет. Если ты не готов к тому, что ты в любое время можешь...
There are no hopeless situations. If you are not prepared for the fact that you might die at any moment, then you are not a warrior. If there is a limit in your life where you must complete your journey in this world, it is not something to be feared. This understanding only comes with the realization of death itself. When you are young, you don't fully grasp this. You act out of inertia, driven by your youth and energy, because you do not yet have a complete understanding of life. But when you cross that threshold and every action becomes conscious, and you start to understand what death is and that it could come at any time, then the quality of your warrior spirit also changes. Over these 2.5 years, I can say that I have become wiser. Many things I began to perceive, not just through touch, but through a deeper worldview. Interestingly, I started to understand many things not just by looking at the present day. This understanding has been growing for a long time. You make connections not only from what...
2,5 года, я скажу так.